Hey, the Dolphins got to bounce back in Week 15 of the National Football League after that disgusting, egregious collapse on Monday Night Football against the Titans, and what a golden opportunity to do so. It's a divisional opponent and a team they have a clear advantage over on paper, but that's why the game is played on the field. I am your host of Dolphins Today, Jake Riepma. Let's dive into this matchup. It's the Jets visiting Hard Rock Stadium to take on the Miami Dolphins, and these two teams played just a few weeks ago on Black Friday, and here's where they stand heading into Week 15 of the National Football League. The Jets coming off a win, so at 5-8, haven't quite officially been eliminated from playoff contention, but you know they are maybe barely showing up on that in the hunt graphic, whereas the Dolphins were in golden position to maybe even earn the number one seed, but after that loss, those chances took quite the hit, but still in cruise control for the division. They control their own destiny to win that AFC East at 9-4. Second best offense as far as points per games are concerned. That defense continuing to get better and better at 22nd, whereas the strength of the New York Jets is on the defensive side of the football, and that scoring offense, not great, 29th, but coming off arguably their best game of the season, their second highest output total as far as points are concerned in the entire year after beating the Texans 30-6. So, Week 15 matchup, Dolphins once again heavy favorites at home, and had Monday Night Football not gone away at the end, I would have guessed that spread to be all the way up into double digits, but still better than a touchdown favorite at home. You're over-under at 39.5. And as I mentioned, these two teams played just a few weeks ago on Black Friday, where the Dolphins really, I don't want to use the term dominated, I'll go controlled. They really controlled that game despite Tua being, I would say, less than a C- performance. He was not good in that game. Threw the two interceptions, as you see on the screen there, had the one touchdown, but the defense was tremendous, including that electric 99-yard interception return by Xavien Howard. And you'll notice Tim Boyle is listed as the starting quarterback there. So this was in the midst of when the Jets were getting crazy and benching Zach Wilson. I guess it's not that crazy. I mean, he was terrible. But Zach Wilson has once again become the starting quarterback. So instead of facing Tim Boyle, the Dolphins will be tasked with defending Zach Wilson. And both these teams 1-1 since their last meeting just 3 weeks ago. Obviously, we've talked at length about the Dolphins' epic collapse on Monday Night Football, so you'd like to see that be 2-0. But the Jets, you know, their season hasn't really had a lot of highlights, but last week was one of the few highlights for the New York Jets. And like I said, they're not completely out of the playoff picture, and they beat the Texans 30-6 last week. And in the second half, Zach Wilson finally played up to his potential and had a much stronger second half than he did first half and was able to lead that team to a victory. Here's a look at his numbers. 27 of 36, better than 300 yards with the two touchdowns. And he took care of the football, which is an important component to playing quarterback in the National Football League. No interceptions, although he did fumble once. But point being, Zach Wilson led the Jets to victory, so they're riding some momentum. And this Dolphins defense that had been playing so well really took a step back against the Titans on Monday Night Football, and in particular in crunch time, in the fourth quarter, the final stretch of the game when it matters the most. They allowed the most points since Week 8, which was a 31-17 loss to the Eagles. And that 28-27 loss to the Titans really was a disappointing conclusion to a fourth quarter by the defense in a game that they played relatively well. Zach Zeller had the pick six. That was awesome to see. But before the game against the Titans, there was no doubt about it that the Dolphins had been the best defense since Week 9. They had the lowest yards per play, several other different statistical measures that Pro Football Focus and other outlets had pointed to the Dolphins really finding their groove on defense under first-year defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. So despite the step back, I want you to be honest with me. What is your confidence level in this Dolphins defense taking on the New York Jets? Let me know in the comments. Scale it for me 1 through 10. Coming up, we are going to continue to dive into this preview with the Dolphins offense and how they're eyeing a turnaround after a really kind of, I would call it a pedestrian performance against the Tennessee Titans. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals, America's #1 meal delivery service. I've been telling you about Factor for weeks, and this time of year is where Factor Meals rolls up their sleeves and said, this is what you're paying for, folks. This is why we're the #1 meal delivery service in America, because it's the holiday season, so we're bustling, we're busy, and you're probably looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you on jam-packed days. Factor's America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. They can help you eat well for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. So when time is of the essence, like it is in the holiday season, you'll save time and you'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. So treat yourself to high-quality, delicious meals over the holidays. You can choose from 35 plus. That's a big number. 35 plus chef-crafted meals every week that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, whether it's calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, and more wholesome options. They're all available at factormeals.com/FinsChat50, and that's where you'll receive 50% off when you use that code FinsChat50. That's code FinsChat50 at factormeals.com/FinsChat50 to get 50% off. And what do I always tell you? We love you and we care about you, so we'll make it easy on you, and we'll put that link right in the chat and the description of today's video. So all it takes is one click, and you're on your way to factormeals.com/FinsChat50 and using that code FinsChat50 to get 50% off. Now, as I've said time and time again, it feels like I'm beating a dead horse, and I apologize to that dead horse, but it needs to be said. The offense took a massive step backwards against the Titans on Monday Night Football. And you can look at all three levels, the offensive line, the wide receivers, the backfield. All of them needs to be better. So as painful as this might be, we're going to go through it step by step, starting with the offensive line. 5 sacks allowed. That's the most this season. I know what you're thinking, Jake. Everybody's injured. It's been musical chairs on the offensive line. 9 different starting combinations in 13 games. It's egregious. Well, it's such as life in the National Football League. Teron Armstead was out against the Titans on Monday Night Football, as was Isaiah Wynn. Connor Williams left the game in the first quarter, did not return for his ACL, so his season is done. Rob Hunt's working with that hamstring injury. So Austin Jackson, who has been banged up throughout the season, was the only day one starter playing in the offensive line for the Dolphins, which would be a reason for the struggles. But at the end of the day, who's ever out there between the light lines has to be able to produce if you want to be a real contender in the National Football League. And unfortunately, the Dolphins' offensive line did not do that. And as a result, not the only reason for the struggles, but a big component to it, they did not score an offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter, and they were held in the first 3 quarters without an offensive touchdown. That's the first time that had happened in 2 years under Mike McDaniel. And it wasn't Tua's best day either. He's got to be better. He'll tell you he's got to be better. He said on Hard Knocks how he has to be better, but he was held without a touchdown pass for the first time since week 4. I had to double check that when I heard that. Week 4 of 2022. So it had been quite some time since he was held without a touchdown pass. But you get the idea. Everybody's got to be better. And starting with the leader of this offense, the unquestioned captain of the offense, Tua Tagovailoa, the franchise quarterback, I need you to chime in. Give me one word to describe Tua's season so far. He's been under a lot of criticism, especially for how he's played in the second half of the season. Yes, he had a good game against the Commanders 2 weeks ago, but other than that, it's been pretty pedestrian. But I'll tell you what, I still believe in my heart of hearts that Tua is the guy to lead this Dolphins offense and to lead this Dolphins team to the promised land. He's a guy that you can count on in the locker room. He's a guy that can rally the troops. And he has the physical tools to be able to lead the best offense in the National Football League. Let's not forget, he has the most passing yards in the NFL and is not quite at the top of the most passing touchdowns, but in the top 5, he's been getting it done all season long. And I read the comments. I know you guys don't care about the statistics. At the end of the day, it's about one letter and one letter only, and that is the W. He didn't get it done on Monday Night Football, but the Dolphins are still in first place in the AFC East with everything in front of them. And as Mike McDaniel said, and Tua kind of reiterated in his own words, we're not going to let one loss and the ceiling cave in and everything else. There's still a lot to accomplish this season. And what an opportunity to do so, starting with the divisional game against the Jets. And you look at this Jets defense, what a tough side of the ball to try to bounce back against. You see it right there on your screen. Second in total defense, first in pass defense, 10th in run defense, 6th in tackling, and 7th in the pass rush. So if you're not great at math like me, I'll just summarize for you. Top 10 in every single statistical category. So this Dolphins team needs to bounce back, and it will be a huge challenge to do so against a really, really tough Jets defense, but I believe that they can do it. Now, as it stands for the entire team, I saw a lot of things to be concerned about on Monday Night Football, especially with the undisciplined play. A ton of penalties, 7 of them to be exact. That's the 3rd highest total this season. And one in particular that, based on everything that's happened so far this week, we haven't really talked about at length, but it was the Bradley Chubb helmet slap. And if you were with me for the watch party, you know I lost my you-know-what. I couldn't believe what I was watching when Bradley Chubb, a grown adult that's paid millions of dollars to play football on the field, took his helmet off, slammed it down, and basically awarded the Titans a free touchdown because the Dolphins had them stopped, and with the helmet slam, obviously a 15-yard penalty, moved the Titans up, and they score a few plays later. Now, Bradley Chubb was asked about it post-game, and I guess you give him credit for taking responsibility and accountability for his actions. Here was his direct quote: "Just being frustrated with myself, and I let my problems be bigger than the team's problems and hurt the team in a way that I don't want to do that. Looking back on it now, just 2 more steps and I would have been perfectly fine." That's the part that kind of bugs me. I wish he would have just said, "I don't need to slam my helmet." But he did go on to say, "It's just frustrating when I let my emotions get the best of me. But at the end of the day, I tried to do everything I could do to combat that in the second half." And he did play really well in the second half. You got to give him credit. He had the fumble recovery. But I just felt like that penalty was almost emblematic of undisciplined football, sloppy play, and the moment being too big for the Dolphins. It was like, hey, we're on Monday Night Football. Everybody's watching, all cameras on us, and we're slamming helmets and giving teams easy touchdowns. So that was the part that really concerns me because you got to nip that stuff in the bud. And I hope Mike McDaniel and the coaching staff had the appropriate conversations with the appropriate people, the leaders of the team, to get in the guys' faces if needed and say, hey, we can't tolerate that stuff for the Dolphins. So I really hope the Dolphins don't have a penalty problem, but based on what I saw on Monday Night Football, I'm a little bit concerned. So I ask you, let me know in the comments, type Y for yes, N for no. Do the Dolphins have a penalty problem? All right, last but certainly not least, I hate to use this term. It's one of my least favorite terms in sports, and I haven't used it the entire season yet. But I really am starting to feel like this game against the Jets is a must-win game. Every game's a must-win. That's why you play it. That's why they have a scoreboard. They keep score, this, that, and the other. But the Dolphins need to find a way to win this game, and that should be the approach every game. I know, again, not my favorite term in sports. In fact, one of my least favorite. But I'm pulling it out for this game against the Jets because you look at the remaining schedule, this is a must-win game. Because after this, it gets really tough. It's kind of a gauntlet to close out the season. This is where the Dolphins need to make sure they earn their 10th win of the season so they can stay in the driver's seat as it relates to the AFC East. Because after the Dolphins play the Jets, here's who they've got on the schedule next. Like I said, somewhat of a gauntlet. The Dallas Cowboys, who happen to be in first place in the NFC. You've got the in their divisions. I know San Francisco beat the Cowboys, so they technically have the tiebreaker there for the NFC number 1 seed. But you get the idea. Dak Prescott and company have been playing really well. Week 17, on the road against Baltimore, that could have number 1 seed implications. and you don't want to get to a point where the Week 18 matchup, not that I don't have confidence in the Dolphins, but you don't want to be playing or on a losing streak and playing the Bills where the AFC East could be up for grabs with that game. And obviously we know how the first time in Buffalo went. So it's so paramount for the Dolphins to get a win on Sunday against the Jets. And I feel good. 9-point favorites. I've got my score prediction ready to go, but I want to know yours. So let me know in the comments. Predict the score. I'll give you mine. Without further ado, drum roll. I like the Dolphins to get back on track, albeit a tough defense, and win this one 28-17 and get back in the win column. Hey, how about that, sports fans? Let's go Dolphins. Thanks for tuning in to our Dolphins and Jets previews on Dolphins Today.